Ethan had always felt a deep connection to the quiet stretches of land that made up his family's ranch, but nothing meant more to him than the lake. It wasn't large enough to appear on maps, yet it held the kind of stillness that made a person forget the noise of the world. His grandfather used to sit on the wooden dock every evening, a cup of sweet tea in his hand, telling Ethan that the lake was the ranch's heartbeat. Ethan believed that. When his grandfather passed, the ranch, and the lake with it, became Ethan's responsibility, a responsibility he accepted with pride. Life stayed peaceful until the upscale neighborhood of Silver Pines rose on the hillside nearby. What used to be open prairie was now a place of manicured lawns, painted fences, and weekly brunches. Ethan didn't mind, people could live how they wanted as long as they respected the land. But that was before the HOA arrived, sweeping through the area with clipboards, matching polo shirts, and more rules than anyone asked for. At the center of it all was Karen Winslow. She introduced herself to Ethan one day while he was repairing a fence. She walked right up to him, hands on hips, a smile stretched so wide it felt rehearsed. "We're improving community standards," she said, as though it was a favor he should thank her for. Ethan nodded politely but kept his distance. Something about her confidence suggested she believed the entire county was under her authority. Soon enough, her influence reached even the edges of his ranch. He noticed unfamiliar footprints near the lake, and once, a couple from Silver Pines strolling along the shore as if it were a public park. Then he heard rumors. Karen was spreading the idea that the lake was community adjacent, whatever that meant. Whenever Ethan ran into her, she'd mention the lake with an air of ownership, as though she were waiting for him to hand it over out of courtesy. Ethan tried shrugging it off. People talked, he wasn't worried. Besides, the property lines were clear, the deeds airtight. The lake was his. But each passing week brought more signs of intrusion: picnic trash, tire tracks from golf carts, and even a folding chair someone had left on the dock. Something in Karen's tone whenever she spoke about shared beauty spaces, it made Ethan uneasy. She wasn't just admiring the lake. She was circling it like a hawk, waiting for the moment she could swoop in and claim it. Karen's boldness escalated slowly at first, the way a storm builds on the horizon, distant, harmless, and then suddenly roaring overhead. What began as a few HOA members wandering near the lake turned into full-blown gatherings. One afternoon, Ethan spotted a neatly printed sign staked in the ground: Silver Pines HOA Lakefront Rest Area. His jaw tightened. Rest area. On his land. He pulled it out and tossed it in the barn, assuming it was just Karen overstepping again. But it wasn't a one-time thing. Over the next few days, more signs appeared, each one bigger and more official-looking than the last. It was like the HOA was trying to slowly manifest ownership through signage alone. Karen herself treated the place as though she had personally discovered it. She organized what she called community bonding picnics, which were essentially potlucks hosted entirely on Ethan's lakeshore without his permission. He confronted her once at the edge of the water, pointing out the property boundary. She just smiled that same tight smile and said, "Oh, Ethan, community spirit doesn't believe in fences." He'd never heard anything so ridiculous. But the situation truly spiraled the day Karen gathered the HOA for what she advertised as a special announcement. Curious and concerned, Ethan decided to attend. The meeting took place in the Silver Pines clubhouse, which was decorated for the occasion with pastel balloons and a banner reading, "New Horizon for our community." Karen stood at the front in a pastel pantsuit, practically glowing with self-importance. Beside her was Brad, her overly confident fiancé who strutted around as if he owned everything he laid eyes on. When everyone had settled, Karen tapped her note cards against the podium dramatically. "As you all know," she began, "our beautiful community lake has become a symbol of unity. It brings joy to all of us." Ethan's eyebrow twitched. "Community lake?" She continued, "And in honor of Brad, who has been my rock throughout this HOA journey, I have decided to gift him something truly meaningful." She took Brad's hand and raised it like he had just won a prize fight. "I am officially gifting him the lake." The room erupted in applause, except for Ethan, who sat frozen in disbelief. Karen beamed at Brad, who wore a smug grin, puffing his chest out as though he had just inherited an empire. Ethan pushed his chair back slowly and stood. "You can't gift something you don't own," he said, his voice calm but sharp. Karen waved dismissively. "Ethan, sweetheart, the community voted. Majority ownership wins." That was the moment Ethan realized Karen had crossed from annoying into delusional, and that this mess wasn't going away on its own. Ethan walked out of that HOA meeting with a level of calm that felt almost unnatural, even to himself. Not because he wasn't furious, but because he already knew what Karen didn't. The land didn't care about votes, egos, or pastel pantsuits. It cared about paperwork, boundaries, and legal ownership. Something Karen clearly didn't understand. Instead of confronting her again, Ethan shifted into strategy mode. If Karen wanted a war, she was about to get one, just not the kind she was expecting. First, he began gathering evidence quietly. He dug through his grandfather's old lockbox until he found the original property survey, its edges yellowed but the lines unmistakably clear. The lake sat entirely within his land. Next, he hired a modern surveyor to rescan the area. The new results matched perfectly. Ethan kept both documents in a folder labeled HOA Nonsense, which he carried everywhere for the next week. Then he installed motion-activated cameras around the lake, small, discreet, and capable of recording everything from unauthorized picnics to Karen's endless community events. Within 2 days, he had footage of HOA members setting up folding chairs, dragging coolers across the dock, and even measuring the shoreline as if preparing for a renovation project. He saved every clip. His next step was attending every HOA meeting with quiet precision. He sat in the back, phone recording audio, capturing Karen's speeches about shared public resources and her repeated claims of ownership over the lake. She talked with the confidence of someone who thought her words were more powerful than the law. Ethan simply listened, documenting every delusional comment she made. When he felt he had enough, he contacted a local attorney, an older man named Mr. Caldwell, known for his stern face and zero tolerance for foolishness. After reviewing Ethan's evidence, Caldwell looked up with a grin. "Son," he said, "this woman's building you a winning case brick by brick." The attorney helped him file a complaint with the county land use office, attaching survey maps, video recordings, and meeting transcripts. A week later, a county land inspector named Marla arrived at Silver Pines unannounced. Ethan followed her discreetly as she examined the community dock Karen had built without permits, photographed the unauthorized signage, and took notes on the HOA's misuse of private land. Karen appeared halfway through the inspection, storming toward them in a rage. "You can't just inspect our amenities," she snapped. Marla calmly handed her a clipboard. "These amenities sit on private property you don't own. And you've committed multiple violations." For the first time, Karen's confident facade cracked. Ethan didn't smile, didn't gloat, he just watched, satisfied, as her empire of arrogance finally began to crumble under the weight of reality. The fallout from the inspection hit Silver Pines faster than anyone expected. The county's report arrived 3 days later, and it wasn't just a list of minor warnings, it was a thick packet of citations, fines, and demands for immediate corrective action. Residents gathered outside the clubhouse, clutching the paperwork with wide eyes, murmuring amongst themselves like they just discovered the HOA had been built on quicksand. Every violation traced back to one person, Karen Winslow. Karen tried to spin the situation at first. She marched out onto the clubhouse steps with a megaphone, announcing that the county had misinterpreted community intention and that everything would be resolved quickly. But the residents weren't buying it. They were angry, angrier than Ethan had ever seen them. They demanded answers. They wanted to know why she had misrepresented property boundaries, used HOA funds for a dock that wasn't legally permitted, and declared private land as public without consulting anyone. Karen's explanations got weaker by the minute. The worst blow came from Brad. During an emergency meeting, he stood up in the middle of Karen's speech and said loudly enough for the whole room to hear, "You told me the lake was part of our future, ours. You lied to me, Karen." His face was red with humiliation. She tried grabbing his hand, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, but Brad shook her off. "I'm not entering a marriage built on fraud," he said, pulling the engagement ring from his pocket and placing it on the table before